A ballerina's perspective, from performing with New York City Ballet and Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater to publishing poetry books and mentoring kids and teens. Join us in a weekly discussion with experts to gain mental health clarity and achieve growth and moral consciousness. Give our show a 5 stars, comment, share, and come along for the ride. Welcome to the Growth, Grace, and Gratitude podcast. And today we will talk a little bit about movement therapy, reconnecting back to the body, and dance being the portal to mind body balance with Erica Hornthal, an internationally renowned board certified dance movement therapist, a clinical counselor, and author with a thriving practice supporting individuals all over the world on a journey to rediscover their mind body connection. Erica's area of expertise has caught the attention of multiple publications, including the New York Times, the Epoch Times, the Dance Magazine, Reader's Digest, and Parade. She's the author of Body Aware, Rediscover Your Mind-Body Connection, Stop Feeling Stuck, and Improve Your Mental Health with Simple Movement Practices, and the Movement Therapy Card Deck, 52 Mindful Movement Exercises to regulate your nervous system and process trauma. Wow, I might want to buy that one because that's amazing. Welcome to the podcast. So excited to have you on.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
For my personal journey, I grew up as a professional dancer, so I'm so used to, body movement as a healing kind of therapeutic resource, especially when you're dealing with injuries or body movement was so healing. And aside from it being a passion of mine, over time, I felt like my mental health was helping me feel grounded, even though it was hectic and it was a little bit intense. As be a professional dancer, it's kind of like you have to dedicate so much of your time and your mind and your body to it. But like over time, I realized, wow, it is such a gift in a way. If you're ready to shake off that daily stress, come join us for online beginner adult ballet and yoga classes each week to connect with the flow of movement and the art of ballet into perfect synergy. Come as you are and learn to love your body a little bit more and gain strength and flexibility with each class. All are welcome. Sign up at balletartsmovement@gmail.com. First class free. I wonder, like, how did you get into this whole world of dance therapy? Like, what was your journey to discover this?
I've always been drawn to dance since I was 3 or 4. And when I was in school, I do remember the conversation really being focused on a certain body type and a certain aesthetic when it came to being a professional dancer. Aside from whether or not I met that standard, I always knew that I didn't have the technique and the skill, but I did have the passion and the heart. And I think it was that passion that didn't allow me to leave the art form, the field necessarily, but I didn't always know what that was going to look like. So I had seen so many just incredible performers, students, colleagues, friends that I've been dancing with since I was younger. And when they decided to pursue a career, it was like they left that part of them behind. And they were such beautiful, skillful movers that it always blew me away. And to this day, I think it's interesting that I'm the one of a lot of people I know that maintained that connection to dance. When again, realistically, I knew I wasn't the one that was going to go dance professionally, but it was just inherent to who I am. I can't not incorporate movement and dance into my daily life.
Unlock your best life with Soul app. Book a holistic wellness experience with a trained guide and start changing your life today with compassion practices, inner healing, food and diet, and so much more. Tap into a healthier and happier life with the #1 purposeful living app in the US, the Soul app. Link in the description of the podcast.
Again, I didn't know what that was going to look like until I went off to college, and a professor, an academic advisor, told me about the field of dance movement therapy because she had been working I think with dance movement therapists, she had certainly been researching the field because she was putting together a dance and medicine program and working specifically with individuals that were diagnosed with Parkinson's and different cognitive and movement disorders. So she knew enough to tell me about it. And then I started to research it and saw that it was, merging my two passions, which was helping people, which ended up being more psychologically and emotionally helping people, and using my passion and love for now what looks like more really nonverbal communication, but movement and dance and body language and body awareness. So that was it was really just like permission to be and to be what I wanted to be and to do what I wanted to do without having to make accommodations or piecemeal together some type of career, because it just literally it seems like it kind of fell into my lap. So yeah, I graduated with a focus on psychology. I kept dancing, and then ultimately went to get my graduate degree in dance movement therapy and counseling. So it was a very direct path once I was aware of it. It doesn't have to be that way, and not everybody who is where I am in terms of practicing as a dance movement therapist made the same choices, right, or went the same path. There's a lot of different ways that it can look, but it was kind of the easiest thing, really. I know that it's not always the case for people, but once I found it, it found me. It just felt like it was meant to be. So yeah, just my love and passion for dance and my interest in helping people and supporting people emotionally, and here I am.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. And it's so interesting how when we do connect back to the art of movement, it is very physical, but I feel like it really does kind of like shape our minds in some way. Can you explain like some of the benefits that the people who maybe don't know about what benefits they can get from doing this and who actually should be doing this? Is it like for everybody can do it, or is it kind of like for specific people with different injuries and stuff like that?
Televital supports focus, energy, immunity, sleep, recovery, and resilience. Start feeling better today on a cellular level with zeolite, super green juice, micronutrient gut support, and more. Get over 50% off your first order for Televital. Link in the description of the podcast.
Just breaking it down, dance and movement, especially with mental health or for the purpose of mental health, that is for everybody. Most of us are already, I mean, we're all doing it. Sometimes we're doing it in a way that negatively impacts our mental health, but at the end of the day, it is something that is meant for everyone. If you're looking at dance specifically as an art form or a performing art, right, taking a dance class, that's very different. And while I still think an element of that is for everybody, there are certain diagnoses, certain populations, certain concerns and issues um, that benefit in different ways, right? So it's not that no one benefits from it. But if you have Parkinson's, let's say, there are dance classes, therapeutic dance classes that are specifically geared toward some of the motor issues that you may be dealing with, the psychological concerns, the speech implications. So if we're looking at a specific dance genre or class to support your specific need, that is definitely based on the need. But as a whole, when we look at dance and movement for supporting our mental health, it's really looking at our primary form of communication. We all communicate non-verbally more than we do verbally. But where we are in this day and age, we really prioritize verbal language. We really prioritize thought and cognition. So it's very easy to see why more cognitively based therapies reign supreme. But at the end of the day, I think it's really just a reflection of how disconnected we are from our embodied selves. So, what does that look like? Movement can help support things like balance, but we're not just talking about physical balance, we're talking about emotional balance. So, if someone is feeling like their work life balance is out of whack, they're really burning out or burning both sides of the candle, um, looking at not just exercises per se, but using the body, gaining a sense of balance and stability. The metaphor of that physically has so many amazing benefits psychologically. Transitions, how we transition from one thing to the next. Even if you just think of the kind of sayings, phrases, right, that have to do with body and stress, the weight of the world on your shoulders, a pain in the neck. There's endless ones, right? This is a real way that what we experience is embodied, and all of our experiences are what lead to our thought patterns and our identity. So it benefits everybody to uncover and look at the way you move and how to improve upon those or change those habits to further support where you want your mind, right, and cognition to go.
ClickFunnels easily build any type of online business and sales funnel in record time, no matter what your product, service, or niche, without any tech design or experience whatsoever. Try the ClickFunnels 14-day free trial, link in the description of the podcast.
I love that.
So that was a long-winded, explanation, but it's intricate. I think it's very nuanced because there isn't just one answer. There isn't just, yes, it's good, no, it's not. It's good for everybody, but it really depends on what you're looking to accomplish and then how you want to use movement and dance to support that.
I love that. Yes, it's such a great point. And for so many of our listeners who are on this kind of like spiritual mental health journey, there is a kind of like a craving to connect deeper to the self. And I started this kind of after school program for kids. And I wanted to allow all kids, like you mentioned before, not all kids are born with this perfect shape or perfect ballet technique or the perfect body type. And I feel like it's so true. Like everybody should be given an opportunity to take a dance class because it's such a beautiful gift. And I feel like that limitation, it's not like holistic to be kind of like expressed in the world. Because I feel like every body type should experience dance, especially children. So I started to do after school program for kids and just have like general dance movement classes if some they don't want to do ballet. And I felt that at the end of the program, which was like a few months, their moves like really changed. They became like happier. They became more brighter, and it's so interesting. Like over time, and how you mentioned like our thought patterns. It's like when we start dancing and we listen to our body, we silence that part of our brain that's always criticizing ourselves or just overly critical. And when we kind of like quiet that down and we embrace the present moment through dance, I feel like it's such a beautiful way to not only like find great value in the present moment, but also kind of like tune into our soul more and then like have fun. And when we're having fun with the movement, like our mental health kind of shifts along. Like it's so interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Because we are movers. We're all movers, so whether it's how well you breathe or, how fluid your walk is, where you're carrying different, emotion or stress, how we move through the world is very much correlated to, how we think through the world.
Podpitch is the first and only software that finds, writes, and sends pitches to podcast hosts from your actual email address. Podpitch will make sure you get podcast bookings, guaranteed. Link in the description of the podcast.
For someone that is afraid to move or try dance, as an example, because of how it's going to look, I really try to focus people on how it's going to feel, that we're not concerned, at least in dance therapy, so much with how the movement looks. I don't really use mirrors. It's not, showing a perfect posture or technique, but really getting in touch with what the movement is for your need, right? Like, what am I trying to express and how does my body choose to express that? Or what am I, holding on to, and what does it look like to let go through movement or through the body? So, a lot of us haven't experienced that since we were kids, and we've repressed it, or other people have told us not to do it. doesn't look good, stop, you have no coordination. So it's not going to be easy to jump back into. Even individuals who have years, a lifelong, study of dance and movement, it's not always easy for them to move for natural expression, or to express an emotion, because we're used to taking on an emotion and someone telling us how to move in that way or move through that. Um, but it's natural. It is natural. It is something that time and time again, when I do with my clients, I think they're very surprised at how natural it comes, because it is a remembering. There's a recognition of the body at some point that says, oh, I've been here before. I've done this before.
I love that. That is so true. It connects so many different parts of like in spiritual talk. There's like chakras, and it connects like different parts of your chakras, and it activates different like timelines, childhood timelines, the traumas that we went through, that like you mentioned before, like stored in our body. And I feel like when we're able to like move, and even just the art of allowing ourselves that vulnerability to move is so special, because like you mentioned, like yes, we do have kind of like a program from different expectations, whether it's like society expectations or even our own like egoic external expectation that we kind of like place on ourselves. And then when we're asked to like move, and maybe there's like you mentioned, no mirror, like I love that so much. Actually, there's like some kind of raw vulnerability to be like, so how can you actually move and to not be shy about it and to not have like fear about it? And that's hard because you have to kind of like feel yourself, accept all those parts of yourself that maybe you feel like you wanted to hide for a long time. So I think it is like a beautiful feeling and therapeutic technique.
Yeah. And it's very different to perform. Like, let's use the example you just gave, shyness. It's very different to perform shy than it is to express shy. So it just reminded me that when I was in graduate school, there, again, I see myself as a dancer, but there were definitely people in that class that were, I don't know if they would consider themselves professional dancers or not, but certainly could have been. Like, they had degrees. They were looking to educate other dancers, right, or to teach dance, which was not something that I was really interested in. So you could really tell the difference. None of us really knew what we were doing back then, but you could see the performance versus the authenticity. And I realize that now more than ever, because as a student, I was like, wow, that person's such a good dancer. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're a good expresser, like they could be performing shy or anxiety or anger. It doesn't mean they were really feeling their anger. They could be actually very disconnected from it. So just to clarify that for people, that one of the reasons, again, I don't use a mirror is because I'm not interested in you necessarily expressing the idea of anger for others. I want you to feel inside what that is like for you and organically allow it to come up or move through you. So it's different. It's definitely different because you put that word dance out there, and I think performance is inherent to that, the way we see dance. But I try to really think of dance as just movement and rhythmic expression that comes out as through thought or idea. And when that's the definition, it's possible for everybody, right? I guarantee everybody listening at this moment is moving in some way, whether their eyes are raised, their eyebrows are raised, like, oh, this is really interesting, or they're fidgeting, trying to sit still. Maybe they're scrolling on their phone. Like, that is the movement of the day. And there are ways that it is supporting you, and there are ways that it is actually perpetuating the stress that you are trying to overcome.
Sanger Daniels' online seminar promoting a positive message of self-healing with bioenergy work together with live seminars and remote coaching. Use code BIO20 for a 20% discount for our audience. Link in the description of the podcast.
Yeah, so true. I love that. And it is interesting how towards the end of our classes, when we have after school sessions, I would tell the kids for like 10 minutes at the end, no more choreography, no more like combined sessions. And for this 10 minutes, you can kind of move without any like choreography, basically. And this gave them the ability to kind of like move their body as they see fit. And during that time, like that's the only time that they felt the most free because they were trying to like move their body how they felt comfortable. Like they weren't told by somebody like do it like this, do it like that. They were like
Yeah.
using their entire imagination and entire kind of uniqueness to express that. So I think that is
Hmm.
really great. And I think so many adults we have to just do that also because when we're able to be silly like children, like our inner child feels that play, that excitement and that like again allowance. And I feel like when we give ourselves that ability to allow ourselves to play and to move without feeling like restricted, yes, it's such a great way to like, fully express as as a therapy as well.
Hmm. Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
And it's so cool also you write amazing. In the book Body Aware, what has been your favorite part about that book and maybe what's like one or two takeaways about this whole journey of dancing?
Yeah, I mean, I think when I started well, it actually was born from a workbook that I put together to support my clients during the pandemic because I wanted to have visuals, which ironically the bodywear book doesn't have visuals in it, but the workbook did. It had some visuals so that people, not body visuals per se, to see like how to move your body, but it had like some images or some symbolism, to kind of intrigue, and it was just a little bit more. Um, I don't know how to put it. It was more casual, I guess, in a sense, right? So a flip through kind of thing, and that for me was obviously a resource for clients to be able to use when we couldn't meet in person. But that really birthed this bigger idea of people seeing body movement as a way to support mental health outside of exercise. And so I think what started as this idea of actually the original name of the book was going to be Change Your Movement, Change Your Mind. And that was the narrative going through. It was like, let's talk about all the ways that we need to become aware of our body and our movement and change our movement so we can change our minds. And I think what emerged, that is the one thing I try to share as much as I can, is this idea that in order to support a regulated nervous system or to move through our emotions, what we need to be doing is building a robust movement vocabulary, which means we have to build our embodied vocabulary and move our body in as many ways as possible, especially in this day and age, because we are outsourcing so much of our movement. Things like dicing, chopping, peeling, we don't do anymore. We get it pre-done. We don't even have to rinse our vegetables because a lot of times they're, pre-rinsed, pre-washed, ready to eat. We're not farming. We're not, uh, many of us aren't even mowing our own grass anymore, which great for jobs, but there's again this need to make our lives easier, right? Because of the burdens we've placed on ourselves, whether it's family, work, other obligations, and we're outsourcing things that our body and mind need to be resilient, right? To move through really challenging things, which we are facing every day in many different ways. So that's so much more than exercise. And so I think the other thing that I really want people to walk away from when they read it, or just, from my work in general, is that movement is necessary for mental health, but not all movement is exercise. So if you're only exercising for your mental health, that's not enough. And it's also the way you're moving. So you could be engaging in exercise that's actually perpetuating your cortisol stress responses, not calming them down. So a robust movement vocabulary is a broad spectrum of movement. It's high intensity, it's low intensity, it's stretching, it's stillness, it's sprinting, it's crawling, it's rolling. It's just experiencing your body in all ways possible, because essentially that's what we did as kids. It's what we did when we played on the playground. And that was such a small part of our life. And we stopped doing that a long time ago, most of us as adults. And we've really limited our range of emotion because we've limited our own range of motion. So it is not a physical therapy necessarily. It's not rehab. It's not exercise. It's just really challenging yourself to move in as many and all ways possible. And that can be sitting on the couch in stillness. I have a lot of clients that have a lot of trouble finding stillness because in the stillness is when our thoughts are the loudest, and when our anxiety really increases. So that's been the narrative. That's been I think my favorite part of the book that I come back to. But the process in a whole was really, I forget all the things that happened because I think my focus was, was on the pandemic for most of it. But yeah, I hope that people will take away what they need from it. And at the end of the day, just become more aware of how they feel in their bodies to support, what they want to feel, how they want to feel.
That's so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing this. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
And what did you learn most about yourself during this whole process of helping others?
Yeah. Well, what I learned, I mean, specifically to book writing, I learned that I can write a book because
That's
I don't think that was never on my radar. I don't consider myself I still have a hard time considering myself a writer, because it just was never my go-to form of art. I didn't really write. I mean, I had to in school. But I danced, I performed, I love to sing. So even music is more my cup of tea. I would never really consider myself a writer. So I think that's one thing. That was a big takeaway when it happened. And as I was doing it, I was like, wow, we can do hard things. We can do things we don't necessarily think we're designed to do. And it's very cliche, but if I can do it, I truly think anybody can. Um, but the process of like helping my clients, I think in general, it's teaching me to never stop, um, uh, never, how do I want to put it? Not producing, because I don't want to just like keep putting things out there, but never stop finding new ways to support people, right? Or clients. So the interesting thing is like with Body Aware, it was kind of like my philosophy. I put that out there and it was very focused on dance movement therapy. And it feels accessible. And most people have said it's very accessible. But even that, I still get questions of like, well, how? How do I do this? Right? It was even that was almost like a step too far for some people.
wow.
And so that was one of the reasons, coupled with my own experience in my community, that I created the card deck, because it was like, all right, some people still are in the place where they just need to be told how to do it and how to move and what to do. And so there are cards that are just very general nervous system tools and resources so that when we are under stress or our body is feeling traumatized, we can try on some of these exercises and calm our system down. That was great for a lot of people. And then I was still getting the question of like, how do I listen to my body? What if I can't hear what my body's telling me, So fast forward, I'm working on another resource that's going to come out next year. That's basically a daily guide on what we can do to start listening to our bodies again. So it's not about how much can I get out there and, what's the next trendy idea I can come up with. It's literally birthed from what are people needing? What am I hearing? What's the feedback that I've been given from clients or even people reading, the resources, and almost working backwards, like maybe the goal is to become body aware, but these are things you can do to get there. So, just following that process, and learning from my clients, learning from everyday people that are giving me feedback, which I really appreciate. And that it's healing and our own embodied journey is never ending. It's not, there's no destination. I'm not like, it worked for me, I'm healed, let me impart it on you. No, I'm practicing this stuff every day and I fall into my old habits very easily. And that it's a journey. We're imperfect people in an imperfect world. And for me, I think the goal is to thrive instead of feeling like we're just surviving.
I love that. That is so amazing. And it's so interesting because today's actually National Loosen Up, Lighten Up Day. And I thought it was such a like good
Oh,
synchronistic thing because it's like this is such a great reminder to kind of embrace that inner child carefree attitude and be silly and dance. And I think a lot of times when people actually connect to that silly version of themselves, they feel embarrassed. And
yeah.
part of kind of like uncovering the inner child self is like to not be embarrassed and to, or if you're embarrassed, you can kind of be like, why am I embarrassed, you know? And to also like have
Right.
fun with the silly part because I feel like when we're children and adults would say, you know, this is embarrassing. You have to be, you know, stand up straight and have manners and be like this. And there's so many rules that kids kind of grow up and they think, oh, yeah, we have to be, we have to be presentable. We have to be like this, and this. But then actually you have to be more authentic. And when you are more authentic and even silliness, that's a huge part of it as well. It's like when we're able to invest in ourselves to truly embrace every kind of emotion that comes out of us, then we're truly authentic and then we can have fun with the flow of movement and dance.
Thank you for saying that because I think, when you said the why, like, why can't I be silly? Why is this embarrassing? Um, I don't think we have to understand everything to feel it, but if something's preventing us, it's just very helpful even to ask, like, who taught me this? Who taught me that it's embarrassing to dance in the grocery store? Like, who
Yeah,
taught me that it's,
I actually do that. I
it's
would actually do.
I do too. I mean, I don't make it this a stage, but I've seen people do that too. Is it Blake McGrath? He's like been posting videos of himself like dancing in Target. I mean, like full on performances. It's pretty funny. I think he got kicked out of one. But anyway, like I'm not saying you have to do that, but like if the music, all those places play music. If the music makes you want to
Yes.
move, it's okay to move. You can bop while you're pushing your cart or, sing along to the music. Like there's nothing illegal about that. Yes, you might get weird glances, but honestly, I think that says more about those people. It says more about the people giving you a weird glance than it does about you who's enjoying yourself in the moment. So,
Yes.
we're not talking about encroaching on other people's safety
Right.
or, being a risk to ourselves. We're talking about embracing the moment and finding joy and expression. Um, I don't think there's anything wrong with that as long as, again, we're doing it in a way that supports ourselves and obviously creates security and stability in the environment around us. So, um, you know, why? Who taught me? Who taught me that it's not okay to do this? Maybe someone actually came up to me and said, "You're a terrible dancer. You shouldn't be doing that." I've heard that. That's happened before,
Yeah.
and it's a huge trauma because right then and there, someone is stifling your motion. Someone is telling you not to move in a certain way and you're limiting your range of emotion. So I understand not everybody's going to want to dance like no one's watching. That's okay, but start small. Dance in the privacy of your own home, or put on some music in the car and let your body move in a way that feels appropriate. And it's a practice. We have to get back into it because it's been a long time since a lot of us have done that. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's okay to ask the question of like, who taught me this? Who taught me that it's not okay to do this? Or when did I stop? That's a great question too. Is like, when did I stop dancing for fun? For a lot of people, it's around like 4 or 5. It
Yeah,
just wasn't
totally.
a
Exactly.
priority.
Yeah, totally. And it's actually interesting that if somebody actually, if you're an adult and you actually do want to be silly, and I think pay attention to this. Like if you have friends who kind of are like, you're this is weird, stop. Like I'll reevaluate your friendships because I actually had to go through no, like for real, I had to go through like a whole
Yeah.
thing where people were saying like that's weird, this is embarrassing. Like, like stop that. And then
Yeah.
other
Like if you're
adults
around
go,
people that are censoring you, maybe you should reevaluate those relationships.
oh yeah. But even like something that's so like it might seem minimal in that moment because maybe they'll be like, yeah, maybe they're right. Maybe this is like silly because it's not how an adult should act. You know? So then you start to
Right.
question yourself, and especially like so many of our listeners are empaths and they're like people pleasing. They want to fit in. They want to be kind. They don't want to make a mistake. A mistake. Like not to be the cookie cutter image of perfection. telling somebody, and it's like even the friend is saying like, this is embarrassing. Maybe they have a wound that they're just projecting onto you, and you're picking it up. So I had to do that, and I think it's just wise to just put it out there that people have to also kind of be aware of that. And if they are not embarrassing anyone or them, and if they're just being, their inner child self, they should just, be on the lookout for that. And sometimes it comes with jealousy because if you're able to embrace your silliness and somebody think that's weird, it could just mean that they're afraid of expressing their own silliness. And I feel like maybe tell them, like, let's do some dance therapy together. you know.
Right. If movement, everybody has their own, has their different connection to and comfort with movement and what that means. So I also try to focus on activities that encourage movement, but maybe don't center movement per se. So I'm thinking of like blowing bubbles. Kids love to blow bubbles. They love to pop bubbles. It's actually one of the things that I visit at some point with all of my clients, whether it's like we want to increase our breathing capacity, we want to direct, our attention or focus. We want to be more, embodied with our boundaries and say what we need or, set a goal and achieve it. Like very direct movements. It might not appear that way because to a lot of people that doesn't look like dancing, but that is a very like playful, it can be very silly sometimes, but yet it's a targeted activity, So to some people hearing this, it might be like, oh, I could blow bubbles, sure. So start with that or, revisit a hula hoop or like we used to like skip it or grab some chalk, go to a sidewalk and make hopscotch. It's like
Yes!
these are things that maybe we didn't all do. I don't want to say, I don't want to overgeneralize, but were a lot more common when we were younger. And so that might not be dance because it has an actual activity connected to it. Some people feel more comfortable doing those. So like start with something like that, direct the silliness. Before you worry about like the improvisational of, like a lot of people are very freaked out about improv,
Yeah,
myself
that's so
included. It used to
true.
really
Yeah.
terrify me. And now I'm like, "Ugh, whatever. I mean, what's the worst that could happen? I stand there,
Yeah,
I don't have
actually.
anything to
Oh my
do.
gosh.
I mean, that was terrifying, but
Like
now
the
I'm
moment.
like, okay, I did it a couple times and I'm still here.
Yes.
So it's okay. It's okay. I survived. But yeah, bubbles, playing with jumping rope, jumping. I mean, that's hard, but like that was something we did
Yes.
a lot as kids. Go find a playground or if you have kids, like go on the playground with them. Yeah, just tap into the rhythms of your inner child and you'll find naturally that like silliness just follows. It's kind of hard not to be silly. And then if you are silly, it's very hard to not be in a good mood. You really can't be angry and silly at the same time.
Exactly. I absolutely love this. This is so true. It's
Mm-hmm.
just 100% true. And
Mm-hmm.
where can people connect with you and see your beautiful content?
Oh yeah. Right now, I feel like I'm mostly active on Instagram. My handle is the therapist who moves you. My website, ericahornthal.com. Um, and I just always appreciate when people reach out and send me messages because I do answer all of them and it often leads to really wonderful relationships and connections. So don't hesitate if you have questions or, just want to say hi, please do.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Erica. I had such a beautiful conversation, and I'm sure our listeners are going to fall in love with dance movement and stillness and reconnect with their inner child.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.